Of all the Antwerp 6 designers, Dirk Bikkembergs is the most consistently misunderstood. Ask any casual fashion fan about Dirk Bikkemberg and you will generally get one answer: bungee boots. But this singular take betrays the aggressive and masculine design history of one of the most uncompromising members of the Antwerp 6. And today, we are going to fix that. Dirk Bikkembergs was born in Cologne, which at the time was West Germany, in 1959. His father, who was Belgian, was stationed there as a military officer, and his mother was a German woman. By the 1970s, Dirk Bikkembergs moved back to Antwerp, where he enrolled at the Antwerp Academy by 1978. After graduating in 1982, he would go on to win the Golden Spindle competition in Belgium in 1985 with his first footwear collection. So after winning the Golden Spindle competition, he went on to officially launch Dirk Bikkembergs Ohm, his official menswear collection, which launched in 1986. So while it first consisted only of footwear, he quickly incorporated knitwear and then tailoring shortly after that. And the important thing about Dirk Bikkembergs is he was strictly and solely focused on menswear. Speaking in 1988, Dirk Bikkembergs about his focus on menswear said, "You need to be too much of a designer to do women's clothing. I am too interested in building my men's collection." So of the Antwerp 6, Dirk Bikkembergs was the first to truly break out on the scene. So not only did he win the third edition of the Golden Spindle competition, he was the first of the 6 to officially debut at Paris Fashion Week. He also was quite differentiated from the rest of them with his very specific focus on menswear and aggressive masculine aesthetics and cuts. So even from the beginning, Bikkemberg's clothing was channeling very specifically masculine references, including sports and athletic culture alongside things like biker culture, as well as more specifically homoerotic references. And we will see in the next part how these themes and influences manifested in the garments themselves. Also, before we move on, if you'd like to learn more about Dirk Bikkembergs and his influences and references, please head to our master guide on Substack. It is linked in the description. So for the following, I'm going to show 4 specific pieces, but I would like to start this section with a quote from Dirk Bikkembergs himself. This is from 1996 to Mr. High Fashion. Dirk Bikkemberg said, "I like hard things. Military, riders, and sports. They are always reflected in my work. I like active emotions, a kind of aggression inside the clothing." So let's keep this quote in mind as we look at the following 4 pieces. So the first piece I have here is a nitrile jacket from autumn-winter 1992-1993. And I think this is the best example that shows his dedication to material as a designer, and specifically because the jacket is crafted from nitrile, which is a heavy-duty industrial material. So nitrile, by definition, has high tensile strength and is very resistant against temperature extremes, including very low or very high temperatures. And you can see here on the jacket, not only does it have this ribbed collar, but it has the signature Dirk Bikkembergs hardware that is used on many of the jackets from this era. So speaking on this collection as a whole, I would say it's his definitively most masculine collection. And it was described by the press, specifically Uomo Collezioni at the time, as expressing virility and being quite sculptural and aggressive in silhouette form. Okay, so the second piece we have here is a autumn-winter 1996-1997 bungee vest. So I will preface this by saying I recently sourced this vest and unfortunately is actually missing the bungee hardware. It's quite hard to replace, so I am working on a solution to source new Dirk Bikkembergs hardware, so I will keep you posted on that. I will say for this collection, and this piece specifically, is the best manifestation and representation of Dirk's imagination and inner world as a designer. So not only did this have a heavy focus on incorporating industrial materials and details into the piece, which is best exemplified by the giant O-ring or cock ring, as some people refer to it, on the front, but also the bungee elements when you see it on the runway or on body has a very sadomasochistic or BDSM kink element to it as well. But overall, the fact that this is leather and it has kink and oversized hardware materials incorporated into it is just a very potent manifestation of Bikkemberg's sort of inner homoerotic vision as a designer in both material and form. So the third piece I have here is an extra wide corduroy jacket from autumn-winter 1993-1994. So I wanted to show this piece because it specifically exemplifies Dirk's very strong dedication to tailoring as well. So we often think of him as a leather designer, as a boots designer, of course, a footwear designer, but he did quickly move into tailoring, as I mentioned earlier, after knitwear. And what I think is so nice about this jacket is the extra wide corduroy just feels extra masculine, extra strong on body, and just has a kind of more aggressive element, even though it is a more classical tailoring piece. So the last piece I have here is actually an accessory, which is the numbered scarf from autumn-winter 1995-1996. So this collection, which I really do think is one of Dirk's strongest, specifically mixed athletic culture with club and nightlife culture. So throughout the collection, it featured very tight and sexual silhouettes, very much showing off very muscular bodies and athletic forms from each of the models. The most important motif throughout the collection was the number motif, which was seen on the scarves here and also on knitwear as well. But overall, just a very masculine and sporty collection, one of Dirk's finest for sure. Lastly, if you guys are interested in seeing or even acquiring more Dirk Bikkembergs pieces yourselves, please check out our website, hellishmaterials.la. The link is in the description below. So now I would like to talk about why Dirk Bikkembergs matters so much as a designer. So now in retrospect, after decades of Dirk Bikkemberg's career, we can see that he built a language specifically around masculinity and the athletic body. Not only was he able to build this design language, but he had a very early vision of sportswear mixed with luxury, which we would see later designers pick up as well, especially someone like Rick Owens, who is very similar in his sexual and aesthetic design languages. And not only was Rick Owens inspired by this, but Dirk Bikkembergs as well was highly inspired by American sportswear and the casual nature of American clothing. And overall, Dirk Bikkembergs was just one of the few designers constructing clothing specifically for men by men. Whereas a lot of other Belgian designers and designers in general, it's men creating for women or women creating for men. But Dirk Bikkembergs was specifically a male designer making clothes for men only. And I think this is very important. So I'd like to share one more quote about Dirk Bikkembergs from Mr. High Fashion to help illustrate this point. So this is from June 1988, and the magazine said, while many designers draw inspiration from culture, history, cities, or landscapes, Bikkembergs constructs his designs from an internal imagination, his own ideal vision of the man of the future. So now I would like to go over a few resources if you would like to learn more about Dirk Bikkembergs yourself or do research on your own. So there are not a ton of publications on Dirk Bikkembergs, but there are 2 monographs dedicated specifically to him. The first is 10 Years of Fashion in Football, which was published in 2011 by Lido. The second publication, which I would recommend more, is 25 Years of Athletes in Fashion, which was published in 2013 by Rizzoli. So unfortunately, I don't have physical copies of either of these books, but the second is more of a 25-year retrospective on Dirk Bikkembergs. The first is a little more specific. So if you are going to source one of these books, I would recommend the 25 Years book. The second resource, and I think this is much more important, is the Dirk Bikkembergs Archives, which is hosted via the MoMU Fashion Museum in Antwerp. All right, so hopefully you guys learned a little bit more about Dirk Bikkembergs today and why he is such a different and important designer who is not only misunderstood, but gets pigeonholed into someone who is simply a bungee boots designer or a footwear designer, when he is truly someone more. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more, and see you next time.